begins with a glance that feels like destiny. Her eyes lock onto you, not seeing you as you are, but as the man she dreams you could be. You feel it, don't you? That spark of promise, that whisper of possibility. Is it admiration, desire, or something deeper, hungrier? You think she's choosing you, but what if she's chasing a vision, a canvas she's painting with her own fantasies, where you're merely the outline, not the masterpiece? Welcome to Soul Sync 365, where we unravel the truths that shape our lives. Today, we're diving into the mind of Carl Jung, a man who didn't just explore the human soul, he mapped its darkest corners. Jung devoted his life to uncovering the unconscious, the hidden currents that drive us without our knowledge, and he revealed something chilling about love. Women don't always fall for men. They fall for ideas, projections, fantasies, a psychological script where you're cast as the lead in her private story. But here's the twist. Most women don't even know they're doing it. They're not choosing you. They're choosing a version of you that exists only in their minds. And when you stray from that script, she doesn't rewrite the story, she replaces the actor. Jung called this the Animus, the inner masculine archetype every woman carries. When it's immature or unchecked, it becomes a silent tyrant, driving her to chase dangerous men, reject the good ones, argue without reason, or dominate without wisdom. This video isn't about blame, it's about awakening. We're peeling back the veil to show you how to navigate this hidden force and reclaim your power if you're ready to see love, attraction, and relationships through Jung's piercing lens. Stay with me. This is going to change how you see everything. Let's dive in. The illusion of being loved. When you're just a role in her script, you think she fell in love with you, your presence, your words, your soul. But what if I told you she didn't fall for you at all? What if she fell for the projection of who she wanted you to be? Let's be honest. We often believe that when someone shows affection, they see us clearly. But the truth Carl Jung reveals is far more unsettling. Sometimes, we're not loved for who we are, but for the fantasy someone has painted onto our silhouette. You're not the man she sees, you're the placeholder for her inner story, the unconscious longing she hasn't yet made peace with. And when you step outside that fantasy, she doesn't just feel disappointed, she feels betrayed. In Jungian psychology, this illusion is called projection, and when it comes from a woman, it's often guided by the animus, the internalized masculine archetype within her psyche. When the animus isn't integrated, it dominates her perception. She doesn't meet you, she meets the knight, the rebel, the savior. Her unconscious mind has been rehearsing since childhood. You're no longer a human, you're a symbol. This explains why you felt so desired in the beginning. You were strong, mysterious, composed all the traits her animus adored. But the moment you showed a crack in that armor, vulnerability, hesitation, authenticity, her fascination began to dissolve. Not because you changed, but because the illusion did. Jung compared these relationships to psychological stage plays. And you, my friend, were cast without reading the script. You showed up thinking it was love, but it was theater. And here's the tragedy. The more you try to hold on to the roles she admires, the further you drift from your real self. But before resentment creeps in, ask yourself this. Have you never done the same? Have you never looked at a woman and loved the idea of her more than the person she truly is? We all project. The danger is when we mistake projection for love. So what can you do? You begin by confronting this mirror. When she pulls away because you didn't match her fantasy, resist the urge to morph into her expectations. Ask, does she love me, or does she love how I fit her imagination? This is the moment you choose between validation and integrity. You can perform for her approval, or you can live in alignment with your values, even if it means she walks away. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That includes love. That includes heartbreak. This isn't about blaming her, it's about liberating yourself. Because once you realize you're not on stage, you stop begging for applause. You were never meant to be someone's perfect character. You were meant to be whole. So here's the truth. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you're willing to be true to. When pleasing becomes betrayal, the high cost of being chosen. What if the reason she lost interest wasn't because you weren't enough, but because you tried too hard to be? There's a trap so subtle that most men don't even see it until it's too late. It starts with a look of admiration in her eyes. You feel seen, valued, so you lean in, you give more, you show up more, you adjust, accommodate, refine. You become what you think she wants, only to watch her slowly lose interest. Carl Jung would call this the slow death of the self through self-betrayal. Seneca might call it the path of a man who has abandoned his own command post, seeking approval from outside the fortress of his own soul. This isn't love, it's performance. And like all performances, it ends when the lights go off. The unconscious belief goes like this: if I give her what she wants, she'll never leave. If I become the man she dreams of, I'll finally be enough. But this belief is rooted in fear, not freedom. You trade your mystery for predictability, your depth for decoration, your essence for applause. Jung warned of this dynamic. When a man hasn't integrated his own inner worth, he seeks it through external validation, especially from women. And so begins the mask. Agreeable, polite, emotionally perfect. But a man in a mask is only loved as long as the illusion holds. And illusions, by nature, are fragile. She may have once been drawn to your rawness, your edge, your silence, but now she senses you're editing yourself to be liked, and something primal in her recoils. Why? Because the feminine instinctively trusts the man who knows himself, not the man who reshapes himself to be chosen. Here's the bitter paradox. The more you try to become what she wants, the more invisible you become. Let's reframe this with truth. Every time you say yes to please her, but no to your soul, you make yourself invisible to the kind of love you actually crave. This is how men lose their way. They think being perfect will make her stay. But no one stays for perfection. People stay for realness, for truth, for grounded, sovereign presence. Not because you're flawless, but because you're unshakably yourself. So how do you break free? Start by asking the question most men avoid. Have I changed myself just to be accepted? Then, take responsibility, not by blaming her, but by reclaiming what you surrendered, your voice, your needs, your truth. That doesn't mean you become cold or indifferent. It means you become centered. A man who doesn't need her to validate him is the very man who earns her respect, because he's not performing. He's not playing the Animus-shaped role she unconsciously projects. He's simply there, calm, confident, real. This is the stoic man, the man of logos. He does not flinch when love is withdrawn. He does not crumble when rejected. He stands where he stood before she arrived, whole, dignified, and free. Let that be your North Star, because here's the truth most never hear. The only woman who will ever truly love you is the one who can meet you in your truth, not your performance. Becoming the man who can't be controlled. What happens when a man stops waiting to be loved and starts choosing to become whole? Carl Jung called it individuation, a journey not toward perfection, but toward authenticity, not toward being liked, but toward being complete. It's a brutal path, because it begins with the one thing most men avoid: turning inward. Most never do. Why? Because it's far easier to play the hero in someone else's story than face the parts of yourself you've buried. It's safer to be needed than to be misunderstood. Easier to wear the mask than to confront your own shadow, the insecurities, the wounds, the false identities you've collected just to be loved. But that mask eventually cracks. Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate in the context of love. That fate often looks like heartbreak, betrayal, confusion. You wonder why women lose interest, why they fall for the image, then run from the man. It's not fate, it's your unexamined self begging for integration. The path of individuation begins when you stop asking, "What does she want from me?" and start asking, "Who am I when no one's watching?" You confront your shadow, the parts of you you're ashamed of, the part that fears rejection, the part that gets angry when she pulls away, the part that clings, the part that performs. And instead of hiding those parts, you bring them to light. You own them. You work with them. Then you meet your anima, your inner feminine, not to become softer or more agreeable, but to become whole. The anima is your emotional intelligence, your capacity to feel deeply, your intuition. When integrated, you no longer rely on a woman to complete you emotionally, you become emotionally complete in yourself. That's when you shift. You no longer act from need. You no longer chase. You no longer beg to be seen. You stand. You become the man who does not need her to validate him, and ironically, this is the man women are most drawn to. He is not performative. He is not nice. He is not predictable. He is centered, rooted, present. And this presence, the result of walking through your own fire, is magnetic. This is where Stoicism meets Jung. You become the author of your own emotional landscape. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That is individuation in action. You're no longer controlled by your need to be accepted, no longer swayed by a woman's approval or confusion. You see her projections, but you don't collapse under them. You stay grounded because you've met yourself and you're no longer afraid of what you see. Here's what most won't tell you. The more you know yourself, the less control others can have over you. The more whole you become, the less you fall for illusions disguised as love. And suddenly, everything shifts. You stop attracting women who want a character. You start attracting those who want a consciousness, a real man. A man who has been through the inner chaos and made peace with it. A man who won't be shaken when love tests him. A man who chooses, not chases. So take this seriously. This is your call to stop being chosen and start becoming. Because when you walk the path of individuation, you stop playing someone else's part and start living your own life. Why she feels you most when you stop performing. There's a paradox no one tells you about attraction. The more you try to be what she wants, the more invisible you become. In the early stages, you might have felt her intensity, her eyes locked in, her attention sharp, but as time went on, as you tried harder to please her, to avoid conflict, to anticipate her emotions before even she voiced them, something changed. She began to pull away. You didn't become worse, you became too predictable, too available, too sculpted. The man who was once an enigma became a script. She stopped feeling you not because you lost your value, but because you stopped showing your real self. Carl Jung warned, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Yet many men trade that privilege for comfort, validation, or peacekeeping. Instead of living from their center, they perform. They become agreeable, smiling when they want to protest, silencing themselves to keep her close. They become smooth, soft, inoffensive. But love doesn't blossom in safety, it blooms in truth. And truth is edgy, raw, real. The feminine doesn't crave a puppet. It longs for a presence it cannot fully control. She wants a man she can feel, not a man who morphs to fit her moods. Why? Because your truth gives her something to trust. She may resist it at first. She may push against your edges, test your frame. But deep down, she respects what she can't easily sway. She is drawn to a man who has boundaries, not because he's cold, but because he has a self. He is defined. And the clearer your definition, the stronger your gravity. You don't need to become aggressive or arrogant. That's not presence, that's insecurity in armor. You don't need to become stoic in the wrong way, detached and cold. That's avoidance, pretending to be strength. True presence is rooted in authenticity. You say what you mean, you feel what you feel. You move from your center, not from her reactions. This is where Stoicism comes in. Seneca wrote, "A calm mind is the stronghold of power." That calm isn't passivity, it's presence. The man who knows who he is doesn't need to dance for anyone's approval. His stillness is louder than any performance. So, when you stop performing, she begins to feel you again, not the act, not the mask. You. She leans in not to the perfect lines you've rehearsed, but to the unshakable energy that says, "I'm whole." Whether you stay or go, that energy is freedom. And ironically, it's the very thing that pulls her closer. So how do you live this? You stop chasing compatibility and start embracing clarity. You stop managing her moods and start mastering your own. You stop wondering if she loves you and start asking, am I living in alignment with my values today? Because when you live from your truth, something wild happens. You attract not just attention but respect, not just romance but reverence. And if she leaves, let her. She didn't leave the best version of you, she left the illusion. And now, you're finally free to be real. So ask yourself, what mask have I been wearing to be loved? And are you ready to burn it? You thought winning her heart meant perfecting your performance, showing up at the right time, saying the right thing, being the strong, silent type when needed and the sensitive listener when it mattered. But somewhere along the way, something changed. The more refined your performance became, the more distant she grew. The paradox of male attraction is this: the moment you start performing to be loved, you become emotionally invisible. Carl Jung warned us that we must become who we truly are, not who we are expected to be. Yet many men unconsciously surrender that path for validation. They swap their raw, unpredictable truth for a digestible version of masculinity, a curated identity designed to avoid rejection. But the truth is, the feminine doesn't long for a polished mask. She craves a presence that challenges her, that reflects depth, not perfection. She doesn't want you to adapt to her expectations. She wants to feel the weight of your inner world, the calm certainty that you exist with or without her approval. When a man performs, he stops being real. He says yes when his instincts say no. He hides anger behind politeness, desire behind hesitation, truth behind silence. And ironically, in doing so, he loses the very essence that attracted her in the first place: the mysterious edge, the emotional gravity, the unapologetic clarity of someone who knows who he is and does not bend for fleeting affection. This isn't about rebellion or stubbornness. This is about reclaiming your axis. Stoicism teaches us, as Seneca wrote, that a calm mind is the stronghold of power, not a mind obsessed with approval, not a soul twisted by the need to be chosen. Power comes from integrity when your words match your inner compass, when your energy is still, not desperate. The man who doesn't flinch under pressure, who doesn't sacrifice himself to maintain peace, emits something magnetic, truth. And truth cannot be seduced. It can only be respected or lost. And here lies the shift. When you stop performing, you don't lose her. You give her a choice: to meet the real you or move on. You strip away the illusion and offer what is raw and sacred, a self that will not shrink. And in that truth, you become more than attractive. You become unforgettable. So if she walks away, let her. She didn't leave you, she left the mask. And if she stays, it's not because you played the role well. It's because she finally met the actor who threw away the script. Now, tell me this and be honest with yourself. Have you been performing to be loved, or are you finally ready to be seen? Now, speak it into your truth. I stop performing. I choose truth over approval. It's easy to blame her for the pain, her withdrawal, her silence, her sudden change of heart. But the hardest truth to accept is this: she didn't betray you. She betrayed a fantasy, a role she projected onto you, and you perhaps unknowingly agreed to play. When that illusion shattered, what remained was not betrayal, but disappointment born from expectation, and both of you were responsible for its creation. Carl Jung called this dynamic a psychological betrayal, not between enemies, but between two unconscious selves, each projecting their unmet needs onto the other. She needed a hero. You needed to be seen. She created the stage, but you stepped onto it willingly. The moment you sensed her validation, you performed. You let yourself be defined by what she admired, by the story she told herself about who you were. And when you slipped out of character, when the real you surfaced, her adoration faded, and so did your sense of worth. This is the quiet violence of self-abandonment. When you betray yourself just enough to be loved, you ignore the small inner protests. You suppress your needs. You soften your edges. And eventually, You lose touch with the one person you were meant to honor yourself. But here's where the paradigm breaks open. You are not a victim. You are not powerless. You were not tricked. You consented. And in that consent lies your greatest freedom. Because once you accept your role in the illusion, you gain the power to end it, to choose differently, to stand in the clarity of your own truth. This is where Stoicism becomes your anchor. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. You don't control her projections. You don't control her withdrawals, but you do control how deeply you abandon yourself to maintain connection. And the moment you stop outsourcing your worth, you begin to reclaim your presence. So stop asking why she changed. Ask why you were willing to bend. Stop analyzing her disappointment. Start investigating your own disconnection from self. The answer is never out there. It's in the part of you that feared being alone more than being real. Let this pain teach you something sacred. That true betrayal is not when someone else stops loving you, but when you stop loving yourself in hopes they might. You can exit this script. You can close the curtain on that old performance. All it takes is one decision: to be loyal to your truth, even if it costs you her applause. Now, answer honestly. Have you betrayed your soul to fit her expectations? Say it with clarity. I reclaim my truth. I choose self-loyalty over illusion. There is a kind of love that doesn't demand performance, a love that doesn't ask you to become someone else, to hide your fears, or to meet an image carved in someone else's mind. This love is rare, not because it is mythical, but because few have done the inner work to be ready for it. Real love doesn't come to complete you. It comes when you've already completed yourself. Carl Jung called this integration. When a man has faced his shadow and a woman has harmonized with her animus, they no longer seek in the other what is missing within themselves. They come together not as beggars of affection, but as sovereigns whole, conscious, and capable of love without illusion. There is no need to project, to fix, or to mold. The masks fall. What's left is raw humanity, a kind of mutual reverence that doesn't break under imperfection. In this space, attraction isn't about validation. It's not about charm, strategy, or control. It's about presence. The kind of presence that emerges when you've stared into the abyss of your own soul and didn't flinch. When you've stopped pretending, stopped proving, and simply stood in your truth. That's when you become magnetic not to everyone, but to those whose hearts can resonate with yours. And yes, it will cost you. It may cost you attention, validation, even relationships that fed off your compliance. But what you gain is unshakable. Self-respect, peace, and the capacity to love someone not because you need them, but because you've chosen them. She doesn't need to worship you. You don't need to perform for her. If she sees you fully, your light and your wounds, and still stands by you, then you've met a partner, not a projection. That is the foundation of authentic love. So how do you recognize it? It's simple, but not easy. She doesn't try to change you. She listens more than she corrects. She respects your solitude, your mission, and your silence. And you no longer fear her leaving because your sense of worth no longer depends on her staying. That's not detachment, that's freedom. The kind of freedom that makes real love possible. Are you ready to stop chasing connection and start embodying it? Then remember this: you don't attract what you wish for, you attract what you're ready for. There will come a moment when everything falls away. Illusions, roles, even the identity you wore to survive love. And in that moment, the question will echo: who are you when no one is watching and no one is applauding? This is the threshold of individuation, and most men turn back, not because they lack strength, but because they have been conditioned to believe that their worth lies outside themselves, in approval, in desire, in being needed. But Jung didn't promise comfort, he promised truth. And the truth is this: unless you confront your own depths, you will remain a prisoner of projection, forever acting in someone else's script, forever mistaking performance for intimacy. To be free, you must stop blaming the woman who left, the woman who demanded, the woman who changed, because she was never the source of your suffering, only the mirror of it. The real war is not between you and her, but between your essence and the image you crafted to survive. To win this war, you must stop performing, stop chasing approval, stop trading your authenticity for comfort. Stand in the fire of loneliness and let it burn away everything that isn't you. That's where the shift begins. That's when you stop being available to manipulation, to shallow attraction, to half-hearted connection. You become what Jung called untouchable, not because you are cold, but because you are whole. And from that wholeness, you begin to attract differently. You no longer seek women to fix you or complete you. You draw those who can meet you as you are, without masks, without control, without fear. This isn't a fantasy, it's a revolution of the self. But the price is everything you thought made you lovable. So the question is no longer, how do I make her stay? It becomes, am I brave enough to stay true to myself? Even if she doesn't. The video ends not with a promise, but a challenge. Break the loop. Refuse the script. Choose yourself not out of ego, but out of reverence for the life you are meant to live. Because when you live from truth, love finds you not to fill you, but to reflect your light. It's not the world that must change, it's the mirror you hold up to it. Change your reflection, and the world responds. Breaking free from illusion, living from freedom. There is a hidden cost to playing a role, the slow erosion of your soul. And Carl Jung knew it well. He warned us that if we do not bring what is unconscious into consciousness, it will rule our lives and we will call it fate. That is the fate of many men today, entrapped not by women, but by the image of masculinity they feel compelled to uphold. They perform strength instead of cultivating it. They chase love instead of embodying it. They mistake validation for connection. And slowly, they forget the sound of their own voice. But freedom begins with a rebellion, not against society, not even against her, but against the false self you've been protecting. It is the hardest war you'll ever wage, and the most necessary, because if you do not face your own emptiness, someone else will script your life with their projections, especially women whose animus remains unintegrated. They will not mean to enslave you, but they will, because they're also fighting their own illusions, and two people asleep cannot awaken each other. The man who individuates, who meets his own shadow, integrates his anima, and lives from wholeness cannot be manipulated. He sees projection for what it is. He honors connection, but never chases it. He is magnetic, not because he performs, but because he simply is. He becomes, in Jung's words, the master of his own myth. And it is in this space that authentic love arises not from need, but from resonance. You stop attracting chaos. You stop clinging to potential. You begin to attract from peace, and only those who have met themselves will recognize you. This is not an easy path. It is lonely. It will strip you of everything that once made you feel safe. But what you receive in return is priceless. Integrity, presence, purpose. You stop waiting for permission to be yourself. So the question becomes, are you willing to die to the false self? Are you willing to walk away from roles, from illusions, from the comfort of being needed, so that you can become needed by no one, yet seen by all? Because when you stop needing love, you start embodying it. Jung left us a map. The Stoics gave us the discipline, but only you can walk it. It's not about being chosen. It's about choosing yourself so completely that only truth dares to stay. Jung didn't just reveal the truth, he left you a call to action. Step onto the path of individuation. Stop blaming others for the roles you've chosen. Stop searching for your worth in someone else's gaze. Stop waiting to be picked. Because the man who chooses himself fully, fiercely, without apology becomes untouchable. No fantasy can cage him. No performance can sway him. He's no longer a pawn in someone else's story. He's the author of his own epic. If this message struck a chord, if it stirred something deep within, don't let it fade. This isn't just another video to scroll past. Act now, like this video, to stand with us. Share it with a brother who needs this wake-up call. Subscribe and join the Man of Substance movement. Your support isn't just for us, it's for the next man trapped in illusion, yearning for freedom. Together, we're not just changing lives, we're igniting a revolution. One man at a time. Rise up, own your story, and I'll see you in the next one.